Eric Crawford, and here at Coastal, I began with a project called Gala, the Voice of an Island. And we were going to St. Helena Island and doing recordings of songs there. And from that part, it was very successful. And so we talked about perhaps going to Sandy Island. And at that time, we had heard about the fight for its bridge and so forth. And so we took a first trip there, probably last year or so. And as I stepped on the shores of the waterfront there, I could sense that this was a great story to kind of, and history that had to be told. For the past year, I've been going there doing field work and getting to know the community there, and it's about 55 residents who are there. And they're descendants from the rice slaves who were there back in the 1880s and 1870s. And so it's been great getting to know their culture and highlight how important it is. I think sometimes things happen by some greater power. We had actually applied for two grants. One was a grant for $10,000 for just to digitize some of the recordings and have them housed perhaps on the island there. And then someone sent me the civil rights grant. And at first, the thought of Sandy Island, this isolated island, and civil rights don't quite go together. And so it became important to kind of find some tie-in there. And so by doing some research, I discovered that the island was a very important voting rights place for the church on the island, serve as a voting precinct. And so over time, the islanders would, because they own land, they could vote in great numbers there and sway elections. And because of that, there was an article in the paper in the 1880s, and it said, oh, we have to take the precinct from Sandy Island. And so that became the beginning, I believe, of the civil rights tie-in for this island. Over time, of course, the importance of Prince Washington and his advocating for a school boat and for power and for sewage all became very important as well. So this isolated island, though it stood apart from perhaps the civil rights 60s movement of Martin Luther King and so forth, still had its own civil rights in terms of being self-governing, in terms of creating this island of very educated people who were able to persevere in the Jim Crow times quite well. And that became the story. And so we applied for the grant and never thinking that we would ever get it. I mean, really, it was just, a no-brainer there. And we got it. And I was so happy to tell the Islanders, that not just Coastal Carolina or perhaps Georgetown County, but it was a national recognition for how important this island was. Yeah.
Very special.
Well, one, it's traveling by boat. And they go on large boats. I've been on some small boats, and so you really get an idea if you think back to the 1950s and when they were still rowing boats from Brick Green. And so the trip would take 40 minutes. And once you go past the opening, you're into the Waccamaw, and you realize just how difficult that is of a journey every day, back and forth. And so that first is imposing first. And then when you go on the island and you experience absolute quiet and tranquility, and you realize that for them, this was a safe haven, And so that's the first thing. And then when you encounter these people who are so proud of their culture and who can tell you, they can go back to their great-grandfathers and pass the graves for all their family, is buried in the school. And so it's a place that's very close to their roots. But I think probably the first thing is that trip over. Well, I think this grant is a step one and several other steps. I think that the first thing is a national recognition for this island, and to put it on par with the 16th Street Baptist Church and Little Rock, its school there. And so, it's showing how important this island is, one. And then two, find some other support. I hope that Georgetown County will be moved to help out. There are some things that the Islanders, I'm sure, would love. There's some things that, as far as perhaps roads, perhaps some infrastructure help, that would be great for them. And so, we will begin by focusing on the school there, having that renovated, and restored back to its old glory. And then the inside will be sort of an interactive a museum or a learning center that we can keep all the oral histories of the Islanders and also tell the story of the island, its rice culture, its Gullah culture as well. This can be a great place to bring the children from the schools there to see the rice culture. And rice is a very important curriculum that they have to all know for the SLOs there for the young schools. And so this school would house these stories of the rice and of Philip Washington, the ex-slave who goes to Governor Austin to ask him to be their master. These great stories that are unique to this island here. It's fascinating how this island is found in books by Julia Peterkin, by the WPA narratives. It's intrigued artists and authors over time, and so it's an island that I think is due its time to be in the sun, so to speak. So, I think though we're in a new age of cell phones and Twitter, all the above, it's important to, I think, for them to kind of see where we've come from. And this island has been sort of almost frozen in time. I think our first students say when they're on the island, it's as if we're back in time, and you are. And all the students who've gone have been touched by these very, very real people who cling to their history and who are, in a sense, kind of dying out. This is sort of our last glimpse at a rice culture and the Gullah culture and self-governance and so forth. And so I think it's important that we treasure, help as we can, perhaps save this island as well. Well, I think Sandy Island has taught me that, and I recall I was doing the grant and I'll be up for late nights, felt as if Prince of Washington was telling me, son, keep going, it'll be okay. And it was that sense of, those who have perhaps not been recognized. It's important to go back and go back through history. And in this age of all these movies that have come out and they recognize the contributions of many African Americans, this is one that is another important story that should be told and treasured, because it may be gone very soon.